Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome. Today, we're going to share the heartbreaking story of Isaiah Trammell, a 19-year-old autistic young man whose desperate cries for help went unanswered. In this video, we'll walk you through every moment of Isaiah's story, from his early life and passions to the tragic events of that fateful night and the lasting impact on his family and community. If you care about making a difference and shining a light on injustice, please hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with everyone you know. Every like, comment, and share helps bring attention to this vital story and fuels the push for change. Now, let's start at the beginning. Isaiah Trammell was born on April 8, 2003, in Ohio. He grew up living with autism, ADHD, and Tourette's syndrome. Despite these challenges, Isaiah was known for his infectious spirit. He loved Marvel Comics and even collected magnetic pins he affectionately called his Infinity Stones. Isaiah also enjoyed blasting his favorite tunes at work, and he had a deep passion for sports, especially wrestling and football. Friends and family remember Isaiah for his warm, friendly nature. He would proudly say, "Hi, I'm Isaiah. I'm autistic. I have ADHD." His small daily moments, from sharing a laugh with a friend to discussing his favorite Marvel storylines, paint a picture of a young man full of life and dreams. On the night of March 13th, 2023, around midnight, Isaiah was called for a job interview, a moment that brought both hope and anxiety. Shortly thereafter, he began experiencing an overwhelming mental health crisis. Neighbors later reported seeing Isaiah repeatedly banging his head against a wall at his home. In his own words, he said this was the only way I know to get rid of the crazy in my head. Alarmed by the commotion, a concerned neighbor called the police. It's important to note that a wellness check had been done on Isaiah about a year earlier, a fact that his family was not aware of at the time. When the officers arrived, they not only found Isaiah in severe distress, but also uncovered an outstanding misdemeanor domestic violence warrant related to an incident with his sister and her husband. Following the call, Isaiah was arrested and taken to the Montgomery County Jail in Ohio. Shockingly, the entire process, from the initial call to his transfer into custody, spanned nearly 10 long, agonizing hours. These hours were filled with escalating distress as Isaiah's mental state deteriorated further. Once in the jail, the surveillance footage reveals the heart-wrenching reality of Isaiah's treatment. We hear him repeatedly pleading, "Listen to me, let me out," yet his desperate cries were met with ridicule. One officer is heard calling him ridiculous and embarrassing, while another used even harsher language. Despite Isaiah's continuous requests for a phone call to his mother, water, medication, or even a blanket, he was strapped into a restraint chair twice. The footage also shows that after the first restraint, when Isaiah continued to plead for help, an officer threatened further restraint rather than offering comfort. Rather than being provided with the proper mental health care and comfort that his condition demanded, the restraint was used as a tool of control. After the first restraint, instead of easing his distress, he continued to cry out for help. When he pleaded further, an officer threatened to use the restraint again, rather than offering any form of humane assistance. As the situation deteriorated, Isaiah resorted to banging his head against the cell door in a desperate attempt to cope with the overwhelming pain and isolation. This self-inflicted injury only worsened his condition, ultimately contributing to the tragic outcome. The treatment Isaiah received in jail was not just a failure to provide care, It was a series of actions and inactions that compounded his suffering during a critical moment. The combination of verbal abuse, physical restraint, and the absence of necessary medical and emotional support created a toxic environment where a young man in crisis was left to suffer alone. As Isaiah's distress and self-injury escalated, he continued to bang his head against the cell door. He was eventually transferred to a hospital. Tragically, on March 16, 2023, just 3 days after the crisis began, Isaiah slipped into unconsciousness and passed away. Based on the surveillance footage and reports, when officers noticed that Isaiah's condition was deteriorating, their response was far from what one might expect in a medical crisis. Instead of immediately calling for specialized medical help or adjusting their approach, the officers continued with a routine that involved restraint and demeaning remarks. Even as Isaiah's condition worsened, evidenced by his repeated desperate cries for help and the visible effects of his self-inflicted injuries, the officers maintained their approach by threatening further restraint rather than providing compassionate care. Ultimately, although he was eventually taken to a hospital, the delay and lack of proper intervention contributed to the tragic outcome. It's important to note that while official statements from the jail claimed that medical and mental health providers were present and doing what they could, the footage and eyewitness accounts paint a picture of a situation where Isaiah's worsening health was met with dismissive and inadequate responses. The official report ruled Isaiah's death as a suicide. However, his family and community have long questioned whether he received the compassionate care he so desperately needed. How could a young man in such profound distress be treated in a way that stripped him of dignity? These questions continue to echo among those who knew and loved Isaiah. Isaiah's mother, Brandy Abner, has spoken out with deep sorrow and disbelief. She explained that Isaiah had a long history of using headbanging as a way to cope, and that they had always called for help during his crises, not for an arrest. Isaiah's father and other family members, alongside heartfelt testimonials from friends, paint a picture of a gentle, caring soul whose life was tragically cut short. Following the release of the surveillance footage, the local community was outraged. Advocacy groups and community members have been vocal in demanding further investigation and accountability. A local jail coalition member stated, "Isaiah would be alive today had he been treated with dignity and care." These voices add to the growing call for systemic reform. Before we move to our final reflections, let's address the latest updates. Recently, a state review was conducted, and officials reported that no deficiencies were found in how the jail handled Isaiah's case. No new evidence has emerged, and no further official changes have been announced. Despite these findings, Isaiah's family and community continue to call for further investigation and accountability. Their voices remind us that sometimes even an official review does not close the book on a tragedy. As we look back on this series of events, from Isaiah's early life and his personal joys, through the escalating crisis and his final moments, it's hard not to feel deep sorrow and frustration. Isaiah's story is not just a sequence of events, it's a call to re-examine how we care for the most vulnerable among us. From his experience, we learn the importance of empathy and the urgent need for reform. Let Isaiah's memory inspire us to always listen, help, and advocate for a system that treats every human life with dignity. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this tragic case. What do you think could have been done differently? How can we improve the treatment of people in crisis? Please share your insights in the comments below. If this video moved you, please like, subscribe, and share it with others. Your support not only spreads awareness, but also fuels the push for meaningful change. Remember, While we cannot change the past, every one of us can help shape a better future by supporting mental health and justice reforms. Let's honor Isaiah's memory by working towards a more compassionate society. Isaiah Trammell, though you have left this world, the warmth of your laughter, the kindness in your heart, and the memories you created continue to glow in our lives. Rest in peace, Isaiah. Thank you so much for spending this time with me and for listening to Isaiah's story. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.